All right, just a quick introduction to this one. Ross of the Mardous, who I've previously had on the podcast, has been collating stories from back in the day on the band's Instagram via his diaries that he did back in the day. Some pretty interesting stuff, and the stuff around Glastonbury 2005 is particularly interesting and topical. Basically, Alan McGee's Poptones had their own tent at Glastonbury, and quite a few former guests were playing on it. Anyway, I'll let Ross take it from here.
So, 2005, Poptones took over a tent at Glastonbury. So all the Poptones bands played alongside like bands that McGee was kind of associated with, I suppose, or managing, like the Libertines. They were DJing, and when we turned up on the I think we turned up on the Friday afternoon, drove in. Well, that's a story in itself, which I've touched on in the past diary entries. Anyway, when we turned up, it had been raining for days, so the place was just a swamp. So like park the car and then just finding anyone. Everyone had these little Nokia phones at that point. Just getting in touch with anyone and finding where we're supposed to be and where we were staying, where we were pitching our tent stuff was a nightmare. But as the weekend went on, the sun came out and it ended up being quite a pleasant, memorable experience, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. So I'm just going to delve into a few of the highlights, I suppose. And one of them was Glastonbury, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. Glastonbury 2005. Poptones took over a tent, a stage, sponsored by Budweiser. I mean, there was a Budweiser tanker parked behind the stage with one kind of hose going into the taps at the bar where the bands could kind of help themselves to beer. So it was a bit it had success or stroke disaster written all over it from the start. And when we turned up on the Friday, sort of midday, it had been raining for days, so the place was like a swamp, and the sort of festival crew were going around like chucking straw on the ground to try and kind of make it walkable on. But as the weekend went on, the sun came out. It was quite nice, you know. I've got loads of memories from that and things to talk about, so we'll do a little Glastonbury section if we can. And as I've said before, from the kick-off, we turned up in this battered Vauxhall, 3 adults in the back seat, 2 in the front, and like bags of it, so it was like really cramped and stuff. The place was a mess, like drinking and there's cans on, and the car only lasted like months after that before it stopped working. It was like I loved it, but it was a disaster. So we pulled up in this rickety old thing, and the crew saw us coming in the artist entrance, and for some reason went, "It's Coldplay. Coldplay have arrived," and got on the radios and stuff. "Coldplay have arrived," and I was just kind of looking around, going, "Excuse me." But we didn't argue. We just got waved through the parking amongst all these flash cars in the backstage area. Like, what's going to happen now? Got our passes and then waded through the mud. So other bands that were playing the Poptones tent were all the Poptones bands, and also like DJing would be like the Libertines. I remember on the Saturday night, the Libs and Alan McGee were DJing the Poptones tent, and I remember like Alan, everyone was just dancing on the stage in front of the crowd, like all the Poptones bands and artists and stuff like that. Like, so the Libertines were hanging around and stuff. Alan was DJing. I remember him like shouting me over, "Ross, right, come and choose a record. Well, you choose the next record. What do you want to play?" And he had like his big stack of records underneath the decks on the stage. It was like hundreds of people out front dancing. So I was like rifling through his vinyls and stuff. Picked a few. I can't remember what I picked, the Jam or something. And someone else gave them to him, and he went, "Yeah, they're great choices, man, but crowd don't want to hear that. All they want to hear is Oasis." He was just playing Oasis all night. And I have just really fond memories of like the Libs DJing. I remember like sort of dancing with Gary and stuff, and on the stage though, in front of everybody. Sort of like it was a real random experience. It was like a massive works weekend away, because like all the Poptones bands and all the sort of bands that we'd been playing alongside or supporting or whatever, the Libertines and all that, were just like sort of just hanging about backstage in this tent, which was the Budweiser sponsored tent. There was a Budweiser tanker parked out behind the backstage with one hose coming into this one beer tap for the bands just to help themselves to Budweiser beer. And I'm not a big Budweiser beer fan, but I got stuck in, as we all did. Free beer, that was it, you know, like, and we were skint bands, so this was like the dream. So as the weekend went on, like, we did our set, I was quite happy with it. I'm really delighted to see so many people turn up to watch the set and stuff, and just mostly hanging backstage and just like chatting to random people as well, like wandering around. So we sort of access all areas passes to Glastonbury, so just remember like Ben and I just going for a walk and just like sidling up to like the main stage, the pyramid stage at Glastonbury. I think just like the Killers were waiting to go on and stuff, and just watching like the BBC people running around, and me and Ben were just there like sinking a couple of beers, just watching it all, just going, like, this is pretty cool, isn't it? And you just wander anywhere, just like having a look around and watching all sorts of shenanigans going on. And also like a few people like spotting the artist passes, and you'd be like, hey, do you want to come and try? I remember trying getting invited to try some pear cider by this guy from Somerset or something, with some amazing pear cider, and just like looked after us all weekend. It was fantastic. So we played on the Saturday afternoon, and I remember like the tent really filling up when we went on, which was amazing really. I think it was sort of, I didn't see it quite as busy again until the Paddingtons came on much later. So it was fantastic. So thanks if you were one of those people that came along to see us in Glastonbury, because that was a special moment for us. On Sunday morning after like Saturday night, rather booze fueled, woke up Sunday morning, sort of came out of the tent, and we were staying quite near Michael Eavis's gaff, his farm, and he just cycled past. He was like, morning, on his bike. I was like, this is like the perfect Glastonbury start to any day, really. Perfect Sunday at Glastonbury. And it was just such a great laugh. So it was like, so that was the Glastonbury. Start of a very busy summer for us.